I sell a great product, but in most hospitals, the price I sell it at isn't determined by me or the hospital. It's determined by a contract that was negotiated before I walked in the door. Marcus Chen, SynTera Orthopedics, Group Purchasing Organizations, GPO, Premier, Vizient, Health Trust. These are the intermediaries that negotiate contracts between manufacturers and hospitals on behalf of large member networks. A hospital that is a Premier member can purchase SynTera products at the Premier contract price, a negotiated price below list that reflects the volume commitment of Premier's entire membership network. Methodist Dallas is a Premier member. They have access to the SynTera Premier contract. The contract tiers matter. Premier's orthopedic contracts typically have 3 or 4 tiers based on SynTera's share of the hospital's joint replacement volume. If Methodist commits 70% of its primary knee procedures to SynTera, it qualifies for Tier 1 pricing, our lowest price point. If they are at 40% share, they're at Tier 3. My job: understand what tier every account is on, what share commitment is required to move up, and whether moving them to a higher tier is commercially worth the clinical investment. And here's the reality. Some hospitals don't use their GPO contract. They negotiate a direct agreement with SynTera outside the GPO. That's called a custom contract or a sole source agreement, and those are managed at the corporate level, not by me. Agentforce shows me every account's contract tier and the share percentage that triggered it. Group Purchasing Organizations, the dominant contracting mechanism in U.S. device markets. Group Purchasing Organizations, GPO, are member-owned or investor-owned entities that aggregate purchasing volume across multiple hospitals and health systems to negotiate standardized contracts with medical product manufacturers. The 3 largest GPOs in the U.S., Premier, Charlotte, NC, Vizient, Irving, TX, and Health Trust, Nashville, TN, collectively represent the purchasing power of over 4,000 hospitals and generate hundreds of billions of dollars in contracted spend annually. GPO contracts typically offer hospitals pricing below list price in exchange for volume commitments or market share tiers. For medical device manufacturers, GPO contracts are a prerequisite for access to the majority of U.S. hospitals. A hospital that cannot purchase a device through its GPO relationship or negotiates a standalone contract faces internal procurement barriers that may prevent routine use even if a surgeon wants the product. GPO contract structure for orthopedic implants, tiers and share commitments. Orthopedic GPO contracts are typically structured as tiered agreements where the per-unit price decreases as the hospital's market share commitment to the contracted manufacturer increases. A typical Premier orthopedic implant contract might have 4 tiers. Tier 4 greater or equal to 40% share at a 15% discount from list. Tier 3 greater or equal to 55% share at 22% discount. Tier 2 greater or equal to 70% share at 28% discount. Tier 1 greater or equal to 85% share at 35% discount. The share is typically defined as the percentage of total primary knee or hip procedures at the hospital performed with the contracted manufacturer's system, measured against a baseline or documented through SPD case records. A rep who understands the tier structure at each account can quantify the financial value of converting additional surgeons. Each additional procedure with SynTera moves the account toward a higher tier and a lower per-unit price, potentially offsetting or reversing the cost argument the VAC used to maintain the incumbent. The 3 major GPOs and their hospital membership overlap. Premier, Vizient, and Health Trust each represent different subsets of the U.S. hospital market. Though membership overlap is common, large health systems may participate in multiple GPOs. Premier has particularly strong representation among not-for-profit academic medical centers, community hospitals, and rural health systems. Vizient, formed from the merger of Novation, Prevista, and others, has significant representation among academic medical centers and university-affiliated health systems. Health Trust, a subsidiary of HCA Healthcare, primarily serves HCA member hospitals and affiliated community hospitals. For a device rep, knowing which GPO each account primarily uses, and what SynTera's contracted status is within that GPO, determines the pricing framework before the first commercial conversation and shapes the contracting strategy for each account. Custom contracts and sole source agreements. Above GPO commercial relationships. Large integrated delivery networks, IDN, with significant volume and negotiating leverage, often bypass GPO contracts and negotiate direct sole source agreements with device manufacturers at the corporate level. A sole source agreement commits the health system to purchasing all or substantially all of its requirements in a category from a single manufacturer in exchange for pricing that may be more favorable than any GPO tier. For SynTera, a sole source agreement with a 10-hospital IDN locks out all competitor orthopedic systems across those facilities, a significant commercial gain, but requires corporate-level negotiation that is managed by key account managers or national account directors, not territory reps. Territory reps play a supporting role in sole source accounts by maintaining surgeon relationships and case volume, but the contract terms that govern their pricing are set above their level. Agentforce contract and tier visibility, enabling territory-level commercial strategy. A territory rep who knows each account's current GPO contract tier, the share percentage that earned it, and the share threshold for the next tier up, can build a precise commercial strategy at each account. How many incremental cases with which surgeons would move the account from Tier 3 to Tier 2, and what the per-unit price improvement would be. This visibility, contract tier, current share, case volume history, is what separates a territory strategy from a visit-by-visit reactive approach. Agentforce contract management integration with distributor case data and hospital share tracking surfaces this information at the account level, enabling reps to have financially literate conversations with supply chain directors who are managing their own GPO compliance metrics. The surgeon wants to use my system. The hospital approved it through the VAC, and then the health system said no. Marcus Chen. SynTera Orthopedics. Baylor Scott & White Health is an integrated delivery network, a system of hospitals operating under shared contracting, shared supply chain, and increasingly shared clinical protocols. BSW has 52 hospitals across Texas. When BSW negotiates an orthopedic implant contract, it's not negotiating for one hospital. It's negotiating for 52. That volume gives them pricing leverage I can't counter at the individual hospital level. And BSW has decided to standardize its primary joint replacement program across the system. One vendor for total knees. One vendor for total hips. That vendor is not SynTera. This is the IDN standardization problem. It is the defining commercial challenge in orthopedic device markets right now. My response: identify which BSW facilities have surgeons who are strongly enough attached to SynTera systems that they will resist standardization. Orthopedic implants are classified as physician preference items, PPI. Surgeons have historically had more latitude to use their preferred implant than they would for a commodity supply like sutures. But that latitude is narrowing. As IDNs tighten cost management, PPI exceptions are becoming harder to obtain. A surgeon who insists on using a non-contracted system puts their hospital in a contract violation with their GPO and their IDN. Agentforce flags every account by IDN affiliation and standardization status. Integrated delivery networks, the system-level contracting reality. An integrated delivery network, IDN, is a group of hospitals, physician practices, and ancillary services that operate under unified ownership or governance, sharing administrative services, supply chain functions, and increasingly clinical standardization initiatives. Large IDNs, Baylor Scott & White, Ascension, HCA Healthcare, Common Spirit, Mayo Clinic, Cleveland Clinic, have the combined purchasing volume to negotiate contracts with medical device manufacturers at a corporate level that individual hospitals cannot replicate. For device manufacturers and their territory representatives, IDN affiliation fundamentally changes the commercial model. The relevant decision makers for product selection may not be at the hospital where procedures are performed, but at a system-level supply chain office that negotiates on behalf of all member facilities. Physician Preference Items, PPI. The historical protection and its erosion. Physician preference items are medical devices and supplies for which the prescribing/using physician's choice has historically been the primary determinant of product selection. As distinguished from commodity items, gloves, drapes, sutures, where hospital purchasing drives selection on price and availability. Orthopedic implants are the archetypal PPI. Surgeons have traditionally selected their preferred implant system based on training, tactile familiarity, and clinical judgment, with hospitals accommodating individual surgeon preferences as a condition of maintaining the surgeon's loyalty and case volume. This accommodation is economically rational when surgeon preference drives case volume. A hospital that loses an orthopedic surgeon to a competitor loses the revenue associated with all their procedures. However, IDN standardization initiatives have been progressively eroding PPI accommodation as health systems prioritize cost reduction, supply chain simplification, and GPO contract compliance over individual surgeon preference. The business case for IDN standardization: cost, compliance, and quality. IDNs pursue implant standardization for several interconnected reasons. Cost. A system-wide commitment to one or two vendors enables volume-based pricing tiers unavailable to fragmented purchasing. Lower per-unit cost at scale is the primary financial driver. Supply chain simplification. Fewer SKUs across the system reduces SPD complexity, instrument tray management burden, and staff training requirements. GPO compliance. System-level standardization aligns with GPO tier commitments that require minimum share percentages to unlock the lowest price tiers. Quality improvement. Standardization on a single system allows the IDN to accumulate surgeon experience and institutional data on one platform, potentially improving outcomes consistency across sites. From the device manufacturer's perspective, IDN standardization is the highest stakes commercial event in any territory. Winning the system contract opens all facilities. Losing it closes them. PPI exceptions, the surgeon resistance lever. When an IDN standardizes on a competing system, surgeons who strongly prefer a different implant may seek a PPI exception, a formal institutional approval to use a non-standardized product in specific cases. Exception processes vary by institution. Some require a written clinical justification, demonstrating that the standardized product is clinically inadequate for the specific patient population. Others require value analysis committee review. Others grant exceptions based on volume thresholds. High-volume surgeons may retain more latitude than low-volume ones. PPI exceptions are a meaningful commercial mechanism. A surgeon with a genuine clinical preference for SynTera, backed by documented outcomes and strong case volume, may sustain use of SynTera products even within a BSW standardization contract. But the institutional friction of the exception process erodes over time. Exceptions require annual renewal, administrative burden, and ongoing justification. And IDN supply chain teams progressively tighten exception criteria as part of standardization enforcement. IDN strategy, the corporate account management imperative. Territory representatives cannot solve IDN standardization problems at the individual hospital level. When a system-level contract excludes a manufacturer's products, the response requires corporate-level engagement. National account managers, or key account directors, must engage the IDN's corporate supply chain leadership, propose system-level terms that compete with the incumbent's contract, and build the economic case for a multi-site transition. Territory reps play a supporting role, maintaining surgeon relationships during contract transitions, providing utilization data that supports corporate account discussions, identifying facilities within the system where surgeon preference is strong enough to sustain PPI exceptions, and communicating field intelligence about the IDN's strategic priorities back to the national account team. Agentforce, IDN hierarchical account, views link individual hospital records to parent system records, allowing territory reps and national account managers to coordinate their engagement across the same accounts. It's 11:47 p.m. My phone rings. An 82-year-old woman has a displaced femoral neck fracture at Baylor Grapevine. Dr. Martinez is on call. He's taking her to the OR at 6 a.m. He needs a hemi set. Marcus Chen. SynTera Orthopedics. This is trauma coverage. It's part of the job. The orthopedic industry runs 24 hours a day because fractures don't have office hours. A femoral neck fracture in an elderly patient, typically treated with a hemiarthroplasty. A partial hip replacement. My Apex system includes a hemiarthroplasty configuration, femoral stem, femoral head, bipolar cup. I need to make sure the right set is at Baylor Grapevine by 5:30 a.m. with enough time for SPD to sterilize. I call our regional loaner department. They pull the set. I confirm delivery time. At 5:45, I'm at the hospital. The set arrived. SPD processed it overnight. Dr. Martinez starts at 6:15. Case goes well. Patient is a 91 in the morning. That phone call at 11:47 is the thing about this job that separates people who stay from people who leave. Not everyone is built for 24/7 availability. Not everyone can absorb a midnight case and still cover their 7:30 scheduled needs the next morning. The flip side. The surgeon who got excellent coverage at midnight is loyal in a way that 20 daytime sales calls never produce. Agentforce on-call scheduling integrates with my calendar to show trauma coverage assignments and emergency case history by account. Trauma call coverage. The 24/7 obligation of orthopedic device sales. Orthopedic device representatives, particularly those carrying implant systems used in fracture care, are expected to be available around the clock for unscheduled trauma cases. Unlike elective joint replacement surgery, scheduled days or weeks in advance, orthopedic trauma cases, hip fractures, wrist fractures, tibial plateau fractures, humeral fractures, present to emergency departments without warning, often outside business hours. The on-call orthopedic surgeon must have access to the appropriate implant set within hours of the patient's presentation. If the set is not available at the hospital in consignment, the rep must source it from a regional loaner inventory and ensure delivery and sterilization before the case. This expectation of 24/7 availability is a defining feature of orthopedic device sales that distinguishes it from most other medical device commercial roles and from pharmaceutical sales. Femoral neck fracture and hemiarthroplasty, the archetypal trauma case. Femoral neck fractures, fractures of the proximal femur between the femoral head and the intertrochanteric region, are among the most common serious fractures in elderly patients, frequently resulting from low-energy falls in patients with osteoporosis. Treatment depends on patient age, functional status, and fracture displacement. Non-displaced fractures in younger patients may be treated with internal fixation screws. Displaced fractures in elderly patients are typically treated with arthroplasty. Hemiarthroplasty, partial hip replacement, replacing the femoral head only, leaving the native acetabulum, is the standard treatment for elderly patients with displaced femoral neck fractures and lower activity levels. Total hip arthroplasty is preferred for younger, more active patients. For a rep carrying the Apex total hip system, femoral neck fracture cases represent a frequent trauma call scenario requiring the hemiarthroplasty configuration of the system. Loaner tray logistics for trauma coverage. When a trauma case occurs at an account without standing consignment for the required implant configuration, the rep must activate the loaner tray system, a rapid logistics process to deliver a complete sterile instrument, an implant set from a regional inventory location to the hospital in time for sterilization, and the scheduled case. Key steps. 1. Receive case notification from the on-call surgeon or coordinator. 2. Confirm case start time and implant requirements, system, size range, any special configurations. 3. Contact the regional loaner department, available 24/7, to dispatch the set. 4. Confirm delivery ETA and hospital receiving logistics. 5. Coordinate with SPD to ensure the set can be processed before case start. The window from midnight phone call to 6 a.m. case start allows approximately 4 or 5 hours for delivery and sterilization. A tight but manageable timeline for most regional loaner operations within a major metro territory. The relationship dividend of excellent trauma coverage. Trauma call coverage creates a distinctive commercial dynamic. The surgeon who receives excellent after-hours support, a confirmed set, a rep who showed up at 5:45 a.m., a smooth case, develops a loyalty that routine commercial interactions cannot generate. Emergency cases are inherently high stress for surgeons. A rep who demonstrably reduces that stress by executing flawlessly on short notice becomes professionally valued in a way that goes beyond product preference. This relationship dividend is commercially durable. Surgeons who trust their trauma rep's reliability are significantly less likely to switch to a competitor system, even under institutional contracting pressure. The inverse is equally powerful. A rep who misses a trauma case, fails to source a set, arrives late, has an incomplete instrument tray, damages the relationship in a way that months of successful elective cases cannot repair. Work-life balance implications and the rep attrition factor. The 24/7 coverage expectation of orthopedic trauma sales is a significant factor in representative attrition. Reps who thrive in the role, who can absorb midnight calls, early morning or starts, and high physical and logistical demands, often develop extremely strong surgeon relationships and sustain high performance over long tenures. Reps who cannot sustain the physical and personal demands of round-the-clock availability typically exit the role within 2-3 years. Orthopedic device companies have responded to attrition concerns with a range of models. Dedicated trauma coverage teams that rotate call responsibility across multiple reps, regional trauma specialists who handle overnight coverage, while territory reps focus on elective volume, and on-call stipend structures that provide financial compensation for after-hours availability. Agentforce on-call scheduling tools support these models by tracking call assignments, case coverage events, and after-hours response metrics across the territory team.